If you've got a piece of raw bonsai material that you've been eyeing up for quite some time, but don't quite know where to start, stay tuned to this video because I'm going to be taking you in quite painstaking detail through all the choices that I made to work raw bonsai material for the first time. What's happening, everybody? I'm Darren, and today I'm going to be showing you this collected privet. It was collected in the autumn winter of 2019, and as you can see, it's really put on a ton of strong, healthy growth. So the tree's telling me it's ready for its first styling work. So let's dive in and do it, shall we? Let's get started. So step one is the cleaning step. During the cleaning process, I'm going to go around the tree, removing any obviously unwanted branches, any dead twigs, dead leaves. I'll also identify any dead structural pieces, just cleaning out any material that just obviously isn't needed, but I don't want to go too far and leave myself with absolutely nothing to work with. There's 2 or 3 benefits to the cleaning phase. First of all, by removing all the unwanted stuff, we can see what we've got left to work with easier. Additionally, it gives me a chance to look around the tree and see what features we've got to work with, what movement, what branches, where the branches are. It's just really good to orientate myself around the tree, but it also allows more light into the pieces that we do want to keep so they don't get shaded out, weakened, and maybe even die off. Right, so to start with, I'm just going to come in with the shears. We've got some dead twigs on this piece, so let's just remove them. This whole section looks dead. We've got these small wispy pieces coming from down low. I don't think we're going to need them where they are, but I'm going to reduce the number of them because, you know, you just never know. I always come back to like the strongest piece or the best positioned piece. Just leave 1, maybe 2 max. Go. There's just 2 left now. Bit of an awkward position. There we go. Right, reduce that to 1. I doubt that I'm going to need this little wispy piece down here, but it's good to leave that option just in case. There's another dead twig in here. Let's knock that off because that's a really easy decision to make. So down here we've got these younger, straighter pieces. Straight away I wonder if we'll need that for the final design, but because I don't know yet, I'll leave that intact. What I will do is just come in and prune off the unlikely parts that I don't think I'm going to need. Remove any stubs as well. So we've got 2 pieces here. One's really strong and one's weaker. I'm actually going to remove the stronger piece in this particular instance. I shouldn't do that to my scissors really, should I? And then there's another group of 3. I'm going to remove the 2 outer pieces and just leave the 1 there. These are really easy decisions, you know. We've got a really strong piece here. It's on the inside, facing the trunk. I don't think I'm going to need that. It's got something next to it as well. Cool. Wood's harder than it looks. Okay. Use the right tool for the job, that helps. Same with this piece as well that was next to it. I just don't want those. Not sure if I need this piece, but because it's so long and obscuring my view, I'm just going to cut it back just so I can see past it a bit easier. Same with these smaller pieces. There we go, I can see through to the structural area now. That's much better. That piece off. That piece can be shortened. Now if this little stumpy piece here was a part of the main tree, I wouldn't be cutting it back so hard, but because I'm looking at it structurally and thinking, do I really need this little thin piece here? I probably don't, but I'm not 100% sure, so I'm just going to cut back these in length so that they're not in the way, but at least I've got the option to make use of it in the future. Now one thing that I do know for sure is that this piece in here, this long youngish shoot, I'm never going to want to use that. It's, you know, it's dead straight, it's in an awkward position, it doesn't have any taper, so I am just going to cut that straight off actually. Just going to come in with the saw as best as I can without damaging the main stem. It's really awkward. I've caught the trunk a bit with the saw just here. So I'm just going to put some callus mate over that. Annoyed at myself about that, catching the trunk with the saw. It should heal okay, but you know, it's just a bit frustrating when you're trying so hard not to damage it. So just in here we've got one branch coming from there. And then we've got a cluster of 4 branches just above. I don't want to leave all 4 of these branches, so I need to make a choice here. Now because this area of the trunk is very bare, I'm going to keep this piece. I'm definitely going to get rid of the inner piece because it's not growing at a favourable location on the trunk. It's sort of growing in towards the middle. I'd much rather keep this outer piece and potentially fill in some space around here. So I'm just going to deal with these smaller pieces first. That makes us a bit of room to manoeuvre. That bigger piece comes off, then we've got a branch here, and then we've got another branch here. Okay, so I can potentially position this branch in this sort of area. I've got this one that can come somewhere down here if needs be. And we've cleared out that group of 4 that would lead to an unattractive swelling. Looking up, we've got just one piece here, that's good. And we've got a 2-piece here as well. I don't know what's going on in this area yet, so I'm going to leave these 2 branches for the time being. So there's a dead stub in here. There's a very small branch here. Normally, with that being in the crotch of some structure, I'd probably remove that. But because I think that this piece is dead, I'm going to keep that for the time being until I know for sure what I'm going to do. Pull some leaves out of that crotch there. Okay, there is a piece coming from in this crotch here. So crotch growth is, apart from this guy down here, crotch growth is usually a no-brainer. There we go. That piece can come out there. And we do have a strong piece coming off this way. This guy here is coming from inside there. As it stands, I would probably remove this, but because we've got 2 what look like dead sections here, it might be that we need something in that space, so I'm going to leave that on for the time being. Okay, let's work a bit further round. What have we got? A bit further round then, we've got a group of 4 or 5 shoots coming from right down low here. So I can certainly thin these out. I'm going to remove the lowest one straight away. Remove another low one, and then I'll remove the 2 other pieces to just leave one. Again, I'm not sure if I need this little piece that's coming from right down here, but it's good to leave myself with the option. At this stage, remember we're cleaning at the moment, we're not looking to do the full styling, just removing obvious stuff. Here's an interesting little section. So we've got a thicker piece here from which a big branch is growing from. We've also got lots of thinner wispy bits coming from near the crotch there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove one of those wispy bits, and I'm going to remove this strong piece is facing into this section and going straight up, and it's got quite strong and vigorous. I don't think I want that piece. If I keep this little bit at all, I don't want to be developing that. I want to remove that. That's going to be a really awkward prune. There we go. Got a bit of a dead stub of a branch here. There's also a dried up old root. Let's just get that out of the way. And then in there, some dead twig. Clean those bits out so we can see what's happening. Some old bits of dirt and old dead leaves have gathered in this crotch. Okay, right. So we've got a little cluster of small, weak shoots here. I'm not in a great rush to remove those, if I'm honest. I'll take off the weakest ones and any awkwardly placed. Take off any awkwardly placed shoots from that area. The weaker pieces can go. No point in having multiple shoots in the same location. Just take the weakest pieces out. That leaves that guy. Take that one off. So this one can be a keeper. I chose that one because it's facing in a favourable direction. No other reason really. Could have been any of them. Okay, so let's open that area up nicely. I've got some weaker little shoots here. I'm not going to take them all off. I'll just remove the weaker piece. I'll just remove the weaker pieces there. So that just leaves us 2 on that bit. And I've already addressed this piece, so I know now we've done a 360. So that's the base looking cleaner. Not sure what we're doing up here yet. Not sure about that, so I'm going to leave all these guys. There's a little dead branch in. There's a dead branch in here. I'll come in and take that off. Just there. There we go. This piece here, it's kind of straight. It's coming from an awkward location on the base. It's obscuring my view into the rest of the tree, and it's got this inverse taper here. So I don't think I'm going to use all of this in the final design. The nearest living bud that I've got to cut back to is here. You know, I don't like making big structural decisions during the cleaning phase, but it's just so obvious that I need to do something here, and it's going to make the rest of the work harder if I keep this. I am actually just going to cut across here. Maybe we'll get some budding, maybe it will die back to this little shoot. Whichever happens, I think it's going to be okay. For the sake of moving forward with this tree, I'm just going to come in and make the cut. So now I'm looking at this straight taperless piece. Again, I'm in the cleaning stage, so I don't know if I want to remove this completely just yet, but I do know that I don't want it that long and straight. So I'm going to cut back to these pieces. Okay, and I certainly don't want this piece as long as it is, so I'll just cut back to an outward facing shoot just there. Okay, so that just leaves us now with a group of branches at the base of these dead sections. So to start with, I'll just come in, take away some of the weaker pieces, and then we've got 2 close together here. I'm just going to favour this one because I've got a piece here and a piece here, and that one's roughly in the middle. So we'll just leave those as they are now actually. Let's do a better job on cutting off that little stump. There we go. Okay, that's the cleaning work pretty much done on this tree now. Let's move on to the next step, which is going around the tree, looking at the best base, line and any features that we've got in order to pick the best front and, if necessary, planting angle. So I'm just going to look around the tree and note any interesting features, any interesting movement, taper, look for the best base, the widest base, to see if we can't find an orientation that gives us the best compromise between those baseline and features to give me the best front of this tree. So let's have a look then. We've got some nice details down in the base around here. We've got a nice bit of movement down here. We've got some nice details. It comes up and then back up through this bit. So we've got some nice movement. So that's a reasonably good line. It's not the best base, I don't think. Looking at the tree like this, the base is the widest. What's lacking from this angle though is movement. The movement goes to the back of the tree, so it doesn't look like it has any movement. And it also means that what is currently our approximate apical region is pulling away from the viewer like this. But the base is really good. It's got some nice features, got a nice little overhang. I don't hate that as a potential front, to be honest with you. If we do a 180, we lose the features. We still don't have any movement, but at least the apical region of this tree would be over the viewer. I don't think that's a potential front. I don't know. Maybe I'm being quick to write that off. It does have some age to it. And the base isn't horrendous. Oh, by the way, about the base, the reason I'm not pulling back the surface soil is because I happen to know that this tree's got no thick roots. It's why I've had to tie it into the pot across here rather than using the structural roots. Under the soil, when it was collected, it just went narrow into this big thick taproot. Didn't have any like spreading nebari or anything like that. It seems to be quite a common feature of privets, from what I've seen anyway, from what I've dug up. So I'm not going to pull the soil back. I'm just going to look for the widest base where it contacts the soil. So, and then if we look at it from this side, yeah, looking at it from this side, we have got some nice age through here. The base is reasonably wide, but this area here looks a bit weird if we ignore this with the overhang and whatnot. The movement's quite good as it flows, sort of goes sideways and into this thick trunk up here. So I don't love the base, but I don't hate it either. It does have this pretty thick branch directly in our way though. That might be tricky. I like that. I kind of like this branch or sub-trunk. So I think there's a lot of potential fronts with this tree, but none of them actually scream out at me. As part of the front selection process, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut back some of these dead pieces to see if that can give me a bit of clarity. With dead wood, such as this, when I'm trying to decide should I leave it for gin or should I remove it or leave a stub there to create a feature, I'm taking a steer from the species. So privet tends to have very soft core wood. It's going to rot from the inside out. So a gin won't be appropriate. It would rot away pretty quickly. It's more likely to become hollow, so I'm not going to leave gins out of these. I might just cut them back and leave a bit of a stump to allow for any dieback. It might also create an opportunity to create a feature using some carving, or we might even get some buds from somewhere around here that means that it's usable growth. But I absolutely definitely do know that this, the length that it's at the moment, just wouldn't really look natural, so I'm going to remove that. Okay, with that piece out of the way then, getting rid of these two will give me better visibility into what's going on back here. They're both dead, I don't want to gin them, so I'll cut them off. I think we'll come in about here. Right then, back to the baseline and features. I think the base is really good like this. Features is really good from this view. The line isn't the best with the movement coming away from the viewer from this orientation. Then another option is to go with this. We've got some nice features down here, but we've got better movement through the trunk there. I mean, I still think the options are wide open, but I like this front the best, and I can forgive it having an apex that's leaning slightly away from the viewer. We might be able to play with the planting angle a bit, maybe. But for the time being, I'm going to go with this one for the front. Hopefully you can see that it's quite a nice wide base, and we've got some really interesting features and age to this section over here. If this is the front, then this guy's got to go. But I'm not going to make the decision to remove this until after it's repotted, I think. So this is the front that I'm going to choose. We've got a nice backup front to the side there, but I think this one's the best one. We've got some nice age and some features in the base. Movement isn't the best, but I think the age and the features make up for that. So that's step 2 complete, choosing the front based on the best baseline and features. Now that I've got my front, I'm going to look at the structure for step 3. I'm going to reassess what's left of the structure anyway, and make any final decisions in terms of what's going to stay, what's going to go, what I'm going to use and what I don't need. There isn't a lot of decisions to be made in this tree actually, because by the time we remove some of these hefty pieces, we're not really left with much. That's completely normal for the first working of raw material. I'm not worried at all, particularly these in particular privet, they'll bud back like crazy on any live tissue that I leave behind, so we'll have much more options next time. I don't need all of these with them being so close together. I need to make a choice about what's going to be the trunk line and what I'm going to remove. And looking at it, I think this piece, the piece behind, this piece in here is dead, and there's another dead piece that's next to it. This section here is alive. It's only got one piece of live growth on it, but it is alive. And then what we've got behind is this main sort of section. It's got some nice muscling going on. You know, it's got some really nice defined sections. It's got more than one branch on it. It does have a couple of marks where we collected it and got caught by the saw, unfortunately. The main drawback with this piece is it's at the back of the tree when viewed from the front. It is what it is. What are you going to do? I'm going to remove these 2 dead sections. Again, no intention of ginning those, so I'll cut them back to a stump and we can maybe carve a little bit of interest out of them in the future. They're too big to heal. And once these 2 pieces are out of the way, I'll need to decide what to do with this section, which about here downwards is kind of fused with this main trunk. So that's going to be a little bit awkward. I guess what I need to decide is this going to be my trunk line, or is this going to be my trunk line, or do I just cut it all off? Right, anyway, let's get these dead bits out of the way first. Oh, it's going to be really awkward. Right, I'm just going to yank this bit out. There we go, that's that out of the way. That means I can get my saw down in that gap. Maybe. Does it? We've got some shoots in that crotch there. I'm going to get a saw through there. Yeah, I think I'll have to start the cut with the saw in this location and I don't know, figure it out. Although if I make a decision on this piece, and if the decision is cut it off, that'll make more room to get rid of that dead section. So has this got any live growth further down? No, this shoot at the top here is the only living piece on this trunk. So I haven't got any buds to cut back to. So I'm considering removing this section at the front, cutting it back to a stump somewhere around here. The reason I'm hesitant is because just in here it started to fuse somewhat with this section that's behind it. And if I cut it back too low, I run the risk of either damaging the main trunk with my saw or removing it and finding that there's like an indentation into the trunk that looks a bit weird. Okay, so removing the dead bit at the back is going to be really tricky with this in the way, and I've eyed it up and I've decided that I don't really like this piece. I'm going to cut it back. I'm going to cut this back to just above where it's starting to fuse with the trunk so that I can make that cut safely, and finish off just above where it started to merge with that other trunk. I've changed my mind. I'm going to cut it lower, somewhere about around this area, but I'm going to stop before the saw encounters the main trunk. Maybe. Right, this isn't going to be an easy cut. I don't want to go any further with the saw because I can't see if I'm marring the trunk or not. So I'm just going to try and prise this off. There we go. Oh yes, that gamble paid off. It hasn't started to sort of fuse and merge with the trunk. That was the right decision. Whew. Okay, trunk line and primary structure wise, it just leaves this dead piece here. Right, here we go then. I'm going to approach it from this angle. I'm going to take this quite slowly, just to make sure that I can stay outside of the shoulder. I don't want to jab into any other pieces that are nearby. Make sure I've got the angle correct and consistent. That's looking good. Oh, took that branch behind it off. Oh dear. So the next step will be to wire out branches, lengthen them out more so that more light can get through to that trunk, and hopefully stimulate a lot of back buds to form, which in the future is going to give us much more options. So as I wire the branches, my goal is to put the branch in its own little piece of light, get some really nice natural movement into that branch. I'm not really thinking that each branch needs to be exactly in the right place. I'm not thinking about the final design of the crown or the branches. I'm just trying to impart some natural movement, put the branch into its own piece of space that it can sustainably exist, and then we'll say, okay Privet, it's your move now, and we'll see what it gives us. There's a couple of dead stubs in here. I'm going to remove those. I'm going to saw cut this back to this section here. So that's that knob removed, just this other one, this smaller one now. Woo! I didn't damage anything, woohoo! We are looking at the current back of the tree at the moment, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. At the moment, this piece here is going to be like the apex, the apical region. I may cut back further and create an apical region lower down, depending on what we get popping up, but for the time being, that's fine. So I'm going to keep that one. And just off to the side here, we've got 2 shoots coming from there, and round to this side. Down here we've got 2 shoots coming from just there. Now I'm thinking I don't need, because we've got this shoot here, I don't need both of these, I don't think. This one isn't positioned brilliantly, but in the absence of any other buds lower down, I'm going to use this one. So having this shoot here and this shoot here, both in close proximity to these two, I think I'm going to remove this piece here that's further towards the back. This piece can be further towards the front. This guy will come down here. This guy will come down here. And I think we've selected our branches. So we have got 2 branches here as well, and I'm going to keep these 2 for the short to medium term. Just means more energy for the tree and gives us 1 extra branch to work with. But I doubt that they can exist forever like that. Okay, I'm going to remove this piece. So now that I've got 6 branches in this upper area, I can now use 3 pieces of wire to wire them all. This apical branch is much thicker than all the other branches, so I'm going to have to use a gauge of wire that's suitable to put some movement into this thicker piece and pair it with a much thinner branch. The wire is going to be a bit heavy for that thinner branch, so I'm going to have to wire it really carefully. But pairing this to one of these lower branches gives me plenty of structural wire, and that structural wire is going to provide support to the other branches when we wire those. I'm going to cut this piece off. It got damaged, but it's just in the way. I'm never going to use that bit in the final design. I'll leave this piece. I might use it, I might not, I don't know. At some point I can see cutting this piece off. Anyway, that's the wiring done. I am just going to prune this bit shorter and this piece a bit shorter also. I'm going to cut this piece back and this piece as well. Okay, so here we are then. Try and ignore that and some of these chops. We'll clean those up when the time comes. For the time being though, pruning wise and wiring wise, positioning those primary branches, we're done. So I've simply gone through the tree without any formalised design concept. I've simply made objective design decisions in terms of what branches to keep and what to remove. I've looked at the tree objectively. I've studied the best base, line, features to choose the appropriate front. I cleaned to remove any obviously unwanted pieces of growth that obstructed my view into the tree in order to make objective decisions. By examining the best base, line and features, I selected the best front for the tree. I then set about pruning out any structure that I didn't need or want. Next, I wired and positioned the branches that I wanted to keep, removed any that I didn't want, put some movement into those branches, tried to position them into their own section of light so that they don't get shaded out. There are a couple of areas that are a little congested, 1 or 2 areas where I've left little shoots intact. I probably won't need them, but I've left them there almost as fail-safe to prevent any dieback, keep sap moving, and who knows, they might develop into useful branches. At this stage I can't be sure. So moving forward, I won't be repotting this tree in the spring. I'll be fertilising heavily through the next growing season. I hope to see plenty of buds develop on the trunk to give us any more options for branches, particularly in this area where it's quite shady but empty. If we don't get any new buds forming on the trunk, I think we've got just about enough primary structure to work with actually. So it'll be a case of letting it grow, let these primary branches thicken, and then the next piece of work we will come in, select branches, remove any that we don't want, and we'll look at setting up the secondaries. You know, it looks a bit scruffy at this stage, but when you're working with raw material, I think this is an acceptable result of the first working. We're just trying to set the tree up for the future. We're not trying to create an instant bonsai. You know, there's just isn't enough to create a really convincing tree image on the tree. But what we do want to do is maximise the chances of this becoming an amazing tree in the future by setting it up with this initial work. In the future, I'll look at getting rid of that stump and that stump. For now though, I'm going to put this tree back outside in the garden and hope that spring comes quickly.